Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. And what's up, everybody? It is Wes. Welcome to a mini episode of Pigskins and Pageantry. We're going to go ahead and go through what was a crazy weekend in college football, not just in the SEC, but definitely in the SEC. Matt is not here. He's in high demand once again, but we'll get his thoughts on Thursday. We'll do kind of like the back half of this episode then. So looking forward to that format. Actually, it's going to be kind of fun and different. So joining me, as always, is our Alabama fandom representative, Jesse. How are you feeling?
I'm better now that I've had a few days to get my blood pressure down and reflect and figure out what's important in life.
Important in life, yeah.
And also look at other people who didn't do so well. And excited to do a mini-sode.
It's all about comparison sometimes, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
kind of like I might have done bad, but I did not do as bad as so-and-so, right?
I still won. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're going to talk about that one first, actually. Let's go ahead and get into them.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right, well, that was a thin line for Bama on Saturday at noon, a noon kickoff in Texas. So that's actually 11 over there?
11, yeah.
Really early. So by the way, I believe it's the most streamed college football game like ever. Is that right?
Most streamed on Fox.
Most streamed on Fox. Okay, I thought it was
I believe it's the most streamed football on Fox. Like,
okay, so just Fox.
NFL.
Still, I mean, it's still impressive.
Yeah, including like college, NFL, all of it. So very impressive. I think it just shows how expansive these fan bases are. These are two very, very old historic programs. And everyone's just unwell.
Yeah, I think everybody was trying to get that preview of the SEC, what's going to be going on there in the future. So just to talk through it real quick, and I'm just going to kind of summarize because I know you're going to do it much better. But so obviously Texas making it incredibly close for Bama. Bama winning this one 20-19. I got the point because I picked the blowout that was the least outrageous, which is fair because Bama was favored by like 20
points.
Yeah, something like that. So I was shocked by many things. I was shocked by Texas' ability to throw the ball at will on the Bama defense, especially in the beginning with Quinn Ewers before his injury. But even after he came out of the game, I mean, gosh, the backup quarterback hobbling around out there, still able to, run for a first down, and use his feet occasionally. We're seeing uncharacteristic things from Bama. Like, what is there, like 15 penalties? Is that right?
15 penalties for 100 yards.
Yeah, but then, and like in my mind, the whole time that I'm watching the game, I'm thinking, as I think many of us were, that Bama's going to kick it into gear, right? Mm-hmm. They had a slow first half. They're going to kick it into gear and just cruise on and pull away at the end, and it just never happened.
No.
But they did get it done when it counted. One thing also that was uncharacteristic, we talk about penalties, was Will Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, obviously everybody's entitled to an off game, a weird game, but man, that was just really surprising to me with some of his like personal fouls, lining up offsides, things like that.
Offsides just, I think, was killer for him, especially. I think we probably saw it a little bit in the opener, but we happened to be at Bryant-Denny. He was offsides a few times. And this time, I think it's almost like, and I could be wrong, but winning the Nagurski Award last year and knowing that he started to climb up in a Heisman race towards the end, and going into this season, everyone's like, keep a watch on him, keep a watch on him. And defensive players don't typically win Heismans. And so I think there's just a lot of pressure, that he feels maybe to perform and to make these outrageous plays. And I think that's causing some mental errors, because offsides is mental error. I know it was very, very loud in that stadium as well. So that's probably something too. But also, the personal fouls, like some of those were just absolutely boneheaded moves and were just undisciplined and not something characteristic of a Nick Saban coached team.
It's interesting that you say that about just, the way that he's been this year, maybe feeling the pressure or whatever. I think a lot of times we just think of these people like robots, almost like they have this certain set of skills, almost like in the video games where you have the rankings and stuff. And this guy has this strength and this agility and this blah, blah, blah. And it's just going to be that way forever or just indefinitely. And we forget that these are people with emotions, and not only that, but they physically change from year to year too. So just as we all do, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you want your draft stock to go up, you want to do all these amazing things, and there's a huge payday difference between a first round draft pick and a second round draft pick. And so there's so much outside pressure that whether it's put on them or they put it on themselves, it's still there. So I think that leads to some mental errors or just silly mistakes. And we have to remember these are kids, right? Literally, they're 22 or younger. And so they don't always make the best decisions, despite the fact that they are very disciplined human beings within their, skill set and what they do. But it's still 21 to 22-year-old guys are going to make silly mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Bryce Young able to elude disaster there at the end and just kind of lead them down, score to go ahead, and then they were able to hang on. So Jesse, my question to you is, how loud was it at your parents' house?
Extraordinarily loud. And then also very quiet.
Yeah.
I think we were all just mad, and the dogs are getting like alarmed, and
why is everyone freaking out?
Everyone's just yelling. There's just constant yelling. It was a lot. I feel like we were all just shaken up afterwards and didn't really know what to do with ourselves. It was like, where do we go from here? Even though we didn't play, this has no bearing on what we do with our life.
We get this feeling that always happens.
It does. It's silly. My mom and I talked about, yesterday, why do we let this affect us like it does? Right. It affects your mood. It affects everything. And you get so, riled up. It affects you physically, where you're just like shaking. And it's like, why do I let this do this to me? Yeah.
I saw I don't even know if it was a meme as much as it was just somebody venting before the season even starts. I think it was an NFL team, and I can't remember which team, but they were like, only one more week until I let blank, whatever the team was, determine my mental health state. Yeah. It's like for from now to the end of was that January from the NFL, February, or whatever it is now. So that's fair. So yeah, I mean, I was shocked by all those things. And also Texas's ability to they contained Bama. And I did not see that coming.
We did not deserve to win that ball game. Absolutely not. Nothing about our performance was deserving of winning. And the score shows that. I mean, Texas put pressure on Alabama that teams last year couldn't do. I certainly didn't think Texas would do it, knowing that they were 5-7 last season. But right. Sarkisian is a former, Alabama offensive coordinator. He also helped recruit Bryce Young. So he does have a familiarity with the program that is advantageous.
He attended the Alabama School of Rehab for Coaches. So
exactly. And when you go into a game with the opponent being a 20-point favorite, everybody is telling you that you're going to get stomped. That has to fuel you a little bit. And I think to some degree, Alabama ate the rat poison and thought that we had this in the bag, and we certainly didn't. Texas put pressure on Bryce, and it worked. He did not look like the Heisman Trophy winner of last year at all. He, to me, appeared indecisive. He seemed to forget all of the running that he did the week prior, because it was like, oh God, what do I do now? But in the words of Nick Saban, when his best was needed, he was really good. And, he had to be good. We had 11 first half penalties, 11, and we had dropped passes. And there was this level of sloppiness that I have not seen in a Nick Saban team since, 2007 when he got there. It was wild. We talked about Will Anderson struggling to make plays. He appeared inexperienced as well, and he's supposed to be a leader on the team. Texas, their offensive line did incredible, even though they started 2 freshmen. Their quarterback went out. It was very reminiscent of 2009, knocking Colt McCoy out. And that was very encouraging at first. And then all of a sudden, it's like this other kid comes in and we still can't do anything. It's all about discipline, making the right choices and decisions. Whether it's post-snap, it doesn't matter. We've got to play better. There's no doubt about that, is what Saban said after the game. So I imagine practice this week is going to be grueling, and they're going to be practicing a ton of basics. Nobody was wrapping up on a tackle. We couldn't tackle to save our lives. We were grasping at shoestrings, and we weren't doing anything. There were missed tackle after missed tackle. It was embarrassing. We mentioned, 15 penalties for 100 yards throughout the entire game. Like I said, 11 of which came in the first half. And it was just not good. Thank God for our kicker. I mean,
which is not said about Bama kickers in the past.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see that. And I have to say, I'm still pissed off about the band not being able to be there because of the way that Texas treats.
Wasn't the AC in the locker room
there
broke
was
as well?
No AC in the visiting locker room. And luckily we knew that was going to happen, so we brought our own. But that is just Bush League, because it was 120 on that field. It's a turf field. It's Texas. It's very, very hot, and turf, for those that have never been on turf, is excruciating. It's super hard to cool down. The sun's beating down on it. It's like baking you.
Right.
And for them to not have AC in there, first of all, that's just not safe for players. I don't care how funny you think it is. It's not safe.
Right.
So thankfully our equipment managers brought AC, because that's not okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing for the listeners out there who are not Bama fans, and just people in general who are not Bama fans. I think the reason you probably saw a lot of people pulling for Texas is people understand what happened here. And that is that Bama was vulnerable. Bama could have obviously lost, but Bama will definitely learn from this, because we've seen it time and time again when stuff like this happens, that typically they do learn. Now, are there certain things that, you maybe can't move past when it comes to inexperience or what have you? Sure. But for the most part, Bama is going to move on and do better. And so I think that's why you may have seen a lot of that too, is because people understand that this may have been that one game. You may not ever see that again this year. Sometimes it takes something like this to have that fire lit under you and play better. So,
yeah, I mean, and congrats to Texas. Despite the score, that is a win for their program to know that they matched up with the #1 team in the nation.
Oh yeah.
And they should feel very encouraged about that. However, let's stop pulling these silly little moves with no AC in the band if you're trying to get into the SEC, because we will not take too kindly to that. And not just Bama, the rest of us.
That should definitely launch them into the rest of the season, though. Like you said, absolutely. Can you imagine what that does for their confidence? So,
unfortunately, I don't want to imagine. Not a huge Texas fan.
Well, I was going to say, at least you may not, probably won't have to deal with them again, barring playoff and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to South Carolina at Arkansas. This one was a barn burner, tons of points
Told y'all it
scored.
was going to be good.
Arkansas winning this one 44-30. So I got the point in this one. Spencer Rattler threw for 376 yards, which is more than he has against any other ranked opponent. So, hey, kudos there. I know it's in a losing effort, but still. But it wasn't enough, as Arkansas was really able to control that line of scrimmage. That was one big thing that I noticed in this one. Arkansas able to rush for almost 300 yards.
Yeah.
Including 156 yards and 2 touchdowns by Raheem Rocket Sanders.
I saw the Rocket Sanders. Too bad that's not his actual name. He's like, what
I know.
Name?
Yeah, that'd be spectacular. So, or maybe now he could just do like Chad Ochocinco, just change it.
Yeah.
Of course, that's his last name, but you know what I mean.
Kool-Aid McKinstry for us. His name is not Kool-Aid, but that's what we call him. That's what's on everything.
Right. So hey, yeah, another win for Arkansas. I know it's against South Carolina. I think we kind of saw two programs here where you can kind of see that Arkansas has taken that next step. South Carolina is sort of there, but they're not there yet.
Yes.
So I think that was just an illustration of that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think South Carolina still has some building blocks that they need to get in place. Again, this is their first season with a new transfer quarterback that they've got to get used to. I think their defense had some holes in it that Shane Beamer's going to have to plug. And it was really just a consistency thing. I think his program is not consistent right now. And that's just a growing pain of a new coach and a new program and getting in your own recruits. So it's something that will come. And it's something that I'm sure, Coach Pittman saw on his side, but Pittman's had a little bit more time there than Beamer has. So he's had some time to develop those guys. But yeah, Sanders, he is looking at some career highs right now with former Razorbacks that, are Heisman Trophy winners. So that's really encouraging for him. Yeah. Those are incredible stats. Like you mentioned, Spencer Rattler tried 371 yards and a touchdown. He was 23 for 38 passes. That's huge, but he was intercepted in the end zone midway through the fourth quarter. And the Gamecocks had 3 turnovers. You can't have that. You're never going to win when you lose the turnover game. At least most of the time you're not. And I think an interesting stat that I saw was Arkansas's win over South Carolina was the Razorbacks' first since 2011. The teams had only met 3 times since before Saturday, with the Gamecocks winning each. So first time Arkansas's taken a win.
Yeah. So another win for old Sam Pittman there. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Mizzou at Kansas State. This was how do I put this? Can you put this nicely? I'm really struggling to put this nicely. Just blown out.
Struggling? Mizzou.
Yeah. 40 Kansas State beating them 40-12.
Awful, embarrassing, awful, unwell. It's just not okay.
Brady Cook with 2 picks in this one. Matt got the point, by the way, in this one. But obviously this is an old rivalry going over a century. But this is the first time these teams have played since 2011. But it certainly still means something in Big 12 country. Just ask the K-State fans who quite enjoyed this one. So let me ask you. We've talked about this somewhat before, but I think it's getting more real now. Do you think that Coach Drinky, is he on the hot seat, or is this just like expectation from Mizzou?
It has to be. I don't understand. If you're in another conference, maybe it's fine. But I don't understand how the boosters of Mizzou or anybody in the athletic department thinks that this is okay. This hurts recruiting. When you lose to an out-of-conference opponent, you don't win against in-conference opponents. You haven't fought for a division. You haven't been high up in the division. You haven't fought for a conference title since 2014, 15.
It's something like that. That was
Something
that
like
surprise
that.
year.
I mean, yeah, we played them. I
Yeah,
believe it was my senior year, so I believe it was, the 14th season,
was not
and
close.
it it's it's bad. That hurts recruiting. It also, in general, kind of hurts even people wanting to go to the school, whether you want to admit it or not. In the SEC and across the country,
Yeah,
sometimes people factor football and how fun your sporting events are into their decision to go to your school.
right.
It just happens. So if I'm Drinky, am getting really concerned. And if he's not concerned, then that's an even bigger problem, because the program under his leadership has regressed significantly.
Right. Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, I think it's just a matter of time because, like you said, I mean, it's definitely it reflects on the school. I mean, we've watched the program before deal with. I mean, look at Barry Odom. I mean, who was a decently successful coach, not great, but decently successful. They fired him. I mean, I don't think things are going to be any different in this evaluation. I don't know. I just see his time there is limited.
No,
So
it was bad. I mean, Cook finished 15 for 27 for 128 yards. Well, Abraham missed all 3 of his throws, unless you count the 2 that were caught by the other team. So that's cool. The game, began with a little light drizzle that turned into a very big storm, which seemed to just make things worse. Mizzou tried to drive down for a field goal to open the game, and then punted 4 straight times. 3 of those were 3 and outs. Meanwhile, Kansas State, they just plugged right along. They were doing okay. And Mizzou couldn't overcome 8 penalties, 4 turnovers, and just a big old helping of mental lapses that kept sending the offense to sit down. And then the defense was tired and sluggish after being on the field for so long. And Kansas State just walked to a win.
yeah, when you said a big old helping, I got this mental image of like a food pyramid of things that you shouldn't do as a
The bottom, mental errors.
Yeah,
Foundation.
we need that. Somebody needs to create that. We'll have an illustration. The food pyramid of things you should not do. Bottom being mental errors.
Food pyramid of errors. It was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. It was just bad.
Yeah. Well, and not to move on too quickly, but speaking, I mean, the segue is there about mental errors and talking about this could be like a whole episode. Appalachian State at Texas A&M. App State winning this one 17-14. Nobody got the point naturally, because why would we? No hate against App State, but I mean, if we're being real, I mean, come on. Now I did say watch out for App State. I did say that, but I did not have the guts to pick them. And I mean, what in the world? What is going on?
No one had the guts to pick them. They won the week prior after scoring 6 touchdowns and 40 of those points in the 4th quarter in a 63-61 opening loss to North Carolina.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
no one would pick them. That's silly.
Well, I mean, so I mean, it's been an exciting few games. Oh, and also, game day is going to be in Boone, North Carolina next week. Did you know that?
That's exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're just living it up there. I'm telling you.
They were. If you saw footage of them post game in Boone, they felt it.
So there's so much to unpack here. I don't even know where to start, but let's just start with the number 1 recruiting class, Texas A&M. How does that feel as App State? Nothing that anyone can say would bring me down right now. I'm
the guy that even after I graduate from App State and I'm 45 sitting in my local bar in Nowhereville, I'm still going to be talking about this anytime someone says, hey, what's your name? I'm going to say Fred Johnson. I played nose guard for Appalachian State, the team that beat Texas A&M in 2022.
And I don't remember what Michigan was ranked when they beat them. Gosh, that's been what, 12, 15 years ago.
I was gonna say, I
now?
think it was like what, 2007?
Yeah, something like that. So I don't remember what they were, but I would have to say that
They were top 10.
yeah, I was going to say this has got to rank up there with best wins all time for the program. And they're giant killers is what they are. So,
Drop game.
so not only, so again, this kind of had the same feel as watching Bama, where you watch the game and you're like, okay, well, they're struggling, but I mean, it's not going to be a thing, right?
Turn it around.
Late second quarter, third quarter, they're going to turn it on and just push on. And it never happened. And I mean, A&M's offense just looks anemic, and that's putting it nicely. Haynes
Relaxers
King
in the water cooler.
for real, yeah, 45. Haynes King went. He completed 13 of 20 passes for 97 yards, no touchdowns, no nothing. I mean, it's like what do we do? So for Jimbo Fisher to be this quarterback whisperer, he's got, so for the first 2 games of this season, Haynes King has not looked great. The quarterback last year, save the Alabama game,
For that one time,
did not look great. Who also lost out the starting job to TJ Finley in Auburn this year. So it's like, what is going on? Like, what are they going to do out there?
he said that they're considering a change at quarterback. He said that he would consider a change this week after a subpar performance by Haynes King. He even said that he considered it during the game had it not been going the way it was going, because obviously they didn't prepare to have their backup in. So honestly, I'd have thrown him in. I mean, what's gonna go even worse? I don't think it's gonna be that bad. But you're right. For someone that's a quarterback whisperer, he must be whispering in a different language, perhaps, because this was bad. The Mountaineers outgained the Aggies 305 to 186 yards and had 22 first downs to just 9 by the Aggies. They controlled the time of possession, holding 41 to 29. It's just bad. It's all bad.
Yeah. So this is one reason I didn't know where to begin, because it gets worse, by the way. If you follow the Aggie midnight yell, you know what I'm talking about, where they get together the midnight before and they get hyped up for the game, et cetera, et cetera. Did you see this, by the way?
I don't think so.
They've been trying to keep it hidden, but it's, how that goes. Once it's on the internet, it's out there. And so, okay, so the midnight yell, during the midnight yell, this is what was said. All right, and I'm gonna read from here. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I had to Google this team to make sure they were even real. So I was really confused because Appalachia is definitely not a state. But sure enough, I found them, and they are located deep, and I mean deep in the backwoods, just like you would think any hillbilly college that names themselves the Mountaineers. I just hope these guys can get here tomorrow all right, because I know for a fact that half of their football team can barely even read the name on their jerseys, let alone read a map. It's a shame that the only 2 brain cells that these guys have left are going to get knocked out by our wrecking crew defense tomorrow.
I don't want anybody to come for me as to why I hate Jimbo Fisher. Nobody. Don't ever say anything to me ever.
Oh, he
again.
didn't say this.
Who said?
By the way, this is student led, like the midnight yell, but still, I mean, it's a horrible look, right? So I mean, and look, I know we've all done things that don't age well, right? But this has to take the cake, man. Right?
Absolutely. But luckily, like, at least when I was in college, everything wasn't on the internet.
Right.
And like, we were a little selective about what we put out there. Thank God. But that is bad. So apologies, Jimbo. You did not say that. I still hate you.
I was waiting for that.
Not going to change. but that is not going to age well. And I'm sure whatever student or, whoever it may have been probably is going to get a little slap on the wrist. I don't know. But if I'm Appalachian State, I'm making memes.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
All
yeah.
day
So
long.
they obviously it's the head yell leader. They know the guy's name. I'm not going to put it out here and glorify it, whatever. But so it is funny though. It's like they tried to keep it hidden, so that just made it go viral even more. It's like
Absolutely. It's going to. A couple little statistics I found, or facts if you want. Mountaineers head coach Sean Clark, who makes 10 times less than the $9 million that Jimbo Fisher makes, beat him, which makes me happy. And then along with this historic, incredible victory, the Mountaineers got to go home with a fat $1.5 million check to take back with them to Boone, North Carolina. So who cares if they can't read their jerseys? I bet they can count zeros. And that is a lot of zeros.
that's got to feel great, man. I'm telling
I
you.
mean, I would be unbearable to live with if I were them. I
Oh,
would never let this go. It's just, I was happy Bama pulled out a win. I absolutely was. I am ecstatic, and nothing beats that for me because I didn't think we'd do it. But a really close second is A&M losing to Appalachian State.
yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah. It's it's beyond words.
Another thing that I think is worth mentioning is Jimbo Fisher was obviously hired to take the program to that next level following Kevin Sumlin. Someone was fired after his 6th season. But so far, Jimbo Fisher has not done any better than Kevin Sumlin did with his time at the Aggies. Sumlin was 36-14 in his first 50 games. And Saturday's loss dropped Jimbo Fisher to 35-15 in his first 50.
Wow.
Just something to chew on.
Yeah. I mean, we were even kind of talking about this somewhat on Saturday, just about how, yeah, I mean, they're very comparable, but Jimbo costs a lot more.
A ton more.
So.
I honestly think, and I could be wrong, but had he not beaten Bama last year, I think his seat would have been a lot warmer than it was going into this season. However, a loss like this not only plummets you in the polls, but I think it does make the entire athletic department and those boosters that sign that check question the investment that they've made. So if I'm a booster, he and I are having a sit down and we're chatting through what we're doing, how we've gotten the #1 recruiting class, and how we just lost to Appalachian State, and his record is worse than Kevin Sumlin's.
Yeah. I mean, it's just there's a lot to talk about there, and they're going to be. I'm sure they will be talking about it for a good while. But yeah. All right, let's talk about Tennessee at Pittsburgh. Tennessee winning this one 34-27 in overtime, right? So I don't know, what were your thoughts on this game and Tennessee's ability to just kind of pull one out here, kind of a revenge game of sorts.
Yeah, especially after last season, this game's kind of, I think, becoming a really interesting one to watch, at least for now, while Pitt is a pretty good program. Hendon Hooker finished with 325 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Tillman caught 9 passes for 162 yards. But, Tennessee couldn't put Pitt away in regular time, even though they were limiting them a little bit. And the Panthers lost their starting quarterback in Slovis.
Sounds good.
Yeah, one of those. Sorry. He had an undisclosed injury at the end of the first half, and Patty, however you want to say it, spent the final quarter just kind of hopping around on one leg after twisting his knee after getting sacked. So Pitt had some of their own difficulties that certainly didn't help get them to victory. And the Volunteers allowed a block punt, saw a fumble cut short a drive. They gave Pitt life when Pitt probably shouldn't have had life. And then Trey Flowers muffed a punt with 7 minutes and 28 seconds to go. So to me, I think I don't know if there was something in the water this weekend. I don't know if it's because Mercury is in retrograde, whatever you want to say, but this was a game of missed opportunities and mental errors that I think was plaguing everybody this weekend, except for Appalachian State.
Except for Appalachian State, yeah. Yeah, and so obviously a huge win, and I think Heupel was kind of a little bit emotional about it afterwards. Let's hear what he had to say.
Coach, a back and forth battle that went into overtime. What kind of poise did you see from Hendon Hooker?
How about that effort from our defense, man? Third quarter offensively, we didn't do anything, man. Dominant performance from them for most of the second half. We said we had to come in here and compete for 60 minutes. It's a good football team. And, man, our kids did it to the very end.
You said at halftime this game would come down to your receivers winning those one-on-one matchups. What was the plan for that Cedric Tillman touchdown?
We didn't win many in the third quarter. We won the one in overtime. Those guys just continuing to compete, man, and battle and fight. And just, from where we took over and how we've grown as a football program, learning how to compete. It ain't ever going to be perfect, man. There's a lot of things we're going to learn from. But, man, what a victory for this program.
Yeah, this time last year, this game didn't go your way. It's obviously emotional for you, this win. What are you feeling right now?
The growth of our program, our guys, and there's a lot of things that we got to get corrected coming out of this one. But, man, the fight, the strain, the ability to compete for 60 minutes, man. Offense, defense, special teams. What the defense did in the second half is special, man. That's a big-time effort.
Thank you, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't think that the Tennessee team from last year wins this one.
Yeah, and like you said, of course, it was actually beyond 60 minutes, but yeah, absolutely agree with that, and I agree with what you said there. I mean, just their ability to persevere through adversity, including, as we said, adversity of their own making, 2 fumbles. And like you said, a punt blocked in the second half alone against on the road against a team that won a conference championship last year. Yeah. So, a lot of obstacles there. They were fighting an uphill battle. Yes, it was because of things of their own making sometimes, but hey, they came through it. And if I'm a Vol fan, I got to be encouraged about that. I'm not, but if I was, I would be. And I'm sure we'll definitely get Matt's thoughts on Thursday because
Coach Heupel, please stop saying man.
Man.
I'm telling you, man. All right, man. What they did, man. Okay.
It's funny how every coach kind of seems to have that word. Like Saban's is I.
Yeah. Yep.
They have that one word that just kind of sneaks in, at different times.
It's their filler word.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the next game. That was Kentucky at Florida. Kentucky winning this one 26-16. Matt getting the point in this one. So I talked about it last week. I said I knew that this was going to be a tough one for Florida. They just come off of an emotional win against Utah at home. But let's look at some of the key players for Kentucky. I mean, Dane Key, he's proven to be clutch at wide receiver already as a freshman for Kentucky. Huge moment in this game was in the third quarter when they were tied 16-16. And on the flip side, we're looking at Anthony Richardson now, and he and his receiver didn't seem to be on the same page. I mean, I'm not really sure who was at fault there, nor do I know if they've even really said, but they obviously weren't. He threw it short, and Keydron Smith got one of the easiest interceptions he'll ever have, which turned into a pick six. I mean, it was
so bad.
As soon as he released the ball, you could almost hear like a collective silent, like a gasp and then silence, because everybody knew even before it was caught. They're like, "Oh, this is not good."
It was a horrible pass. It was a horrible decision.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, what a win for Kentucky at the Swamp. So this was Mark Stoops' 61st win as Kentucky's head coach, surpassing none other than the Bear Bryant as the winningest coach in Kentucky football history. Yes,
it's the same Bear for those that are curious. He coached at Kentucky before Bama, and apparently was super successful there as well.
That's it. So let's hear what he had to say after this win.
Coach Stoops, I know it wasn't pretty in the first half, but what did you think of the response in the second?
I thought it was a thing of beauty. We overcome a lot of adversity. And, you don't do that unless you're an experienced, tough football team. And we know we have that mentality. We know each and every week it's going to be a challenge, and we respect Florida, but we were ready to play.
I know you shy away from personal accomplishments, but you just passed Bear Bryant for all-time winningest coach in Kentucky history. What does that mean to you?
Fortunate. A lot of great players, coaches have been through here. To be able to persevere through this difficult conference, I have nothing but respect, and appreciation.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Which is interesting because if you consider his first 3 seasons with Kentucky, he went 0-8, 2-6, and 2-6 in SEC play. But they stuck with him. And as of this year, they've been to 6 straight bowls. So something to be said for sticking with somebody even through the lean years, maybe. What are your thoughts on this one, Jesse?
Yeah. I think, the defense for Kentucky, they gave up just 91 yards to UF in the second half. That's huge for defense, especially for a Kentucky team that in years past has not had a defense or not a great one. And, a lot of those yards, of those 91 yards in the second half, came in garbage time in the final possession of the game. So that's got to be really encouraging for them. Their rushing attack was pretty stagnant in the first half. We heard it in the interview, he wasn't impressed with that first half play. It was really in the second half where things started to crank up. Cavassier Smoke, Lavelle Wright, they finally got going in that second half, and they were able to wear down Florida's defense that seemed to really struggle with the physicality of the offensive line at Kentucky. So that's got to be amazing as well, just to, have an offense that's clicking just as much as the defense is. It seemed like they both kind of started firing on all cylinders at the same time. This was the first time the Gators were shut out in the second half of the game since 2017 against Michigan. Nothing coming for them in that second half. We talked a little bit, or you mentioned a little bit of Richardson. He was not the impressive Richardson that we saw last week against Utah. He finished 14 of 35 for 143 yards with 2 interceptions and only 4 rushing yards. He has yet to throw a touchdown in either game this season.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of his highlights came off of rushing in the last game. But it was interesting. We were talking about the interceptions. I think that definitely got in his head a little bit, because I noticed even the ones that were not interceptions, like let's take another out throw that I noticed later on in the game after his pick 6. It was almost like that was in his mind. So he was like, well, let me throw this one a little bit more outside. And so the receiver had no shot at it because he's not even going to get it close to him. So
like after week 1, everyone was like, oh, he's, his draft stock's gone up, talking about him for Heisman. And we talk about that pressure, and you get all of this media pressure. You get all of these expectations put on you just after one game. Right. And then you come into what should be a relatively comfortable situation, right? You're in the swamp. You know this opponent, you've played this opponent, and then you don't deliver. You either underestimate your opponent and overestimate yourself, or you put so much pressure on yourself and I don't know, just take the rat poison and don't prepare as much. I'm not sure really what happened, but it was not a good showing for Florida at all. And I will say too, though, we talk about Richardson, Will Levis's performance was not stellar either. He seemed to struggle quite a bit too. So I think, as encouraged as Kentucky can be, knowing that they just got another conference win over Florida, I think Will Levis needs to settle in a little bit more. He needs to be a little bit more consistent. So he was luckily able to rely on Smoke and Wright and their defense, but I expected to see more out of Will Levis.
Not enough mayo in his coffee.
Nope, not enough mayo in the coffee. Okay, so we looked into that this weekend, right? Because I was talking to someone about it and how it was super gross, and it's just wrong, right? It's just wrong.
Just wrong.
But apparently, it's that same thing as, and I'm going to get the name wrong, so I'm sorry, but like, is it called skeleton coffee or like I don't know. Whatever the
Not really
coffee is, it's like this thing that makes the coffee more efficient. It's why people put butter in their coffee,
Okay.
where it helps with the caffeine, like keep you boosted longer. The mayo has a similar effect like the compounds do to make it like that. I'm butchering this, but there is well, I don't know if he uses it for this reason, but there is a benefit to it. You could also just put butter in your coffee, but
That's interesting. I did not know. I did not know that about the science behind why.
there is apparently science behind it. And I need to look it up.
Well,
I will
that's
look
something.
it
Yeah, I
back.
was gonna say that's something fun to look into. Anyway, I need to figure that. And so, yeah, I know.
Yes.
I've heard
Okay. So it's believed to provide steady, long-lasting energy
Yeah.
without a blood sugar crash. In theory, since the fat slows digestion, the caffeine in the coffee is absorbed slower and provides longer-lasting energy. So the thing that does it in the butter is also present in mayonnaise, and that can do it. So this is
Is that sounds a lot like the same old logic that I used to use back in the day when we'd go to Wendy's, though. You'd get the Baconator and you're like, well, the Baconator is going to stop up my arteries, so I need to get a Vault, if you guys remember what Vault is. And that all the caffeine is just going to speed up my blood, so it's all good. It balances out, right? This is what that feels like.
Probably. I don't know if the science is sound, but I think that's like people's thought process behind it, and maybe that's his. I don't know if it is.
That's hilarious.
Random fun fact.
Good to know. No, I'm sure it's completely legit. I haven't tried butter in my coffee. I'll have to do that though. All right, so let's move on to some of these less competitive games here, also known as blowouts. I forgot to my apologies to Vandy. Last week I neglected to write them down in our pick'em. Somehow, I don't know how I skipped over them. I did see that they were playing Wake Forest, and I remember even thinking about that, but somehow I didn't make it onto the notes. Anyway, they got blown out by Wake Forest, 45-25. So there's that.
Their win streak is over.
Yeah, and then Samford at Georgia. Georgia won this one 33-0. So Jesse and Matt tied on the differential, so we had to do the math, and Jesse wins the point. Cha-ching, congrats.
Yay.
Then there was Central Arkansas Dub Bears at Ole Miss. Ole Miss won this one 59-3. I got the point in this one. So just interesting note here, Luke Altmaier did start this game, but left the game with an upper body injury. Jackson Dart continued the blowout though. So and then next we had San Jose State Spartans at Auburn 24-16. This was not a blowout. I put it down here because it was uninteresting. That's the only reason why. Yeah, but Jesse, you got the point in this one. So since it wasn't really a blowout, I do kind of want to park just for a second. And we were talking about some of these wins to really bad teams, coupled with the fact that they've already really tried to get rid of Harsin in the offseason. Add to that the fact that Scott Frost just got fired from Nebraska after losing to Georgia Southern. Shout out to Georgia Southern. But it's like
another wild game.
Would he be gone if they had lost? Like Auburn continues to look rough. I mean,
I would think, but I don't know what kept him there anyways. I don't know what's happening on the plains that kept him there when people wanted him out in the first place. But
I think they didn't have a plan to replace him.
I guess, but this is still not an encouraging win. I mean, yeah, they won, but San Jose State put up 329 yards on Auburn. Auburn had 2 turnovers. San Jose State controlled possession and had more first downs.
Mm-hmm.
This is not good. It's just not. I don't know what's happening down there on the plains, but somebody needs to bring Harsin into their office and have a very strong talking to, because this is not a good look.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, like you said, a win's a win. I guess we'll see come later on in the season how bad things are, but because I know sometimes people play to the level of their competition. I get it. A quality team shouldn't do that, but it does happen. So we'll see. All right. Let's talk about Southern at LSU. LSU won this one 65-17. Big time win for them. I got the point in this one. Jaden Daniels started at quarterback, but naturally he came out after the blowout was going on. So we actually have Nussmeier with a lot of the stats in terms of yards. I think he had 183 yards there. He did have 2 picks there.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then finally we had Mississippi State at Arizona. Mississippi State taking care of business out in Tucson, 39-17. Matt getting the point here. Mississippi State did have 3 turnovers, but they were either fumbles after the catch by receivers, or the one interception was catchable ball that bounced off the receiver's hands to the defender. So, not trying to give glory to Will Rogers, but just so we all understand what happened there. So yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts about any of those? I know I go through those quickly but
I mean, not really. I think we talked about the big ones for this week, and there was a lot to talk about. There was a lot to talk about across multiple conferences, with Baylor losing to BYU. If you didn't catch that game, I highly suggest you watch the highlights. It was wild. And shout out to the BYU quarterback. He's got a really interesting story. He's the first African-American quarterback at BYU, which is really neat and wild to think that that's, happening in 2022. But, their kicker missed 2 game-winning field goals in OT and was obviously just dismayed. And then after they won, when everybody's rushing the field and it's this insane, mess out there, the quarterback goes up to the kicker and just holds him while he sobs and tells him, that it's okay. And it's just, I thought a really great show of leadership and teamwork. And so that's not an SEC story, but again, there was a lot of wild things. We mentioned Nebraska that happened with their coach being fired. So it's been a wild weekend, and there are a lot of great stories out there and a lot of weird ones. So
and also worth mentioning, because I know how you feel about Notre Dame. They lost to Marshall, so there's that too. And it's just like you said, I don't know if there was something in the water, but
Mercury is in retrograde.
Weird things going on.
People keep saying on Instagram, so I'm just gonna say it.
That's it.
That's the name of this episode. The Mercury retrograde mini-sode.
I love it. All right, real quick before we head out, let's talk about the listener feedback, because it is focused on the past week.
You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
All right, so we asked you guys, the listeners, what shocked you the most about week 2 around the SEC? And we're going to get started with a doozy here. Okay, you ready? So Philip Columbia says he is shocked that the media pundits thought Florida's quarterback was going to be the next coming of the greatest. He can't pass, worth poop emoji. and if you take away the edge, you can't run. He can't run. Really, do any of you pundits actually understand the game? So it's bold talk there about Florida's quarterback. And look, I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion that he can't do all those things, but he certainly didn't show it on Saturday. So, I mean, it's just like we talk about with a lot of these quarterbacks, it's development, right? How are they going to develop? How are they going to respond to adversity? Because it's like, it's going to happen to everybody. You're going to have a bad game. You're going to have bad throws. You're going to have pick sixes, etc. But how are you going to bounce back? So
yeah, I agree. I don't think we've had enough time to watch him to see. No. I think obviously saying he's going to have a high draft stock and win a Heisman after the win against Utah was very premature.
Definitely.
And should not happen. That shouldn't happen for anybody. No, nobody should do that. But, I mean, look, people were saying Bryce was going to be a repeat Heisman winner, and his performance on Saturday did not show that. So it's a long season. We've got a lot of time. And we will see what happens, but hopefully his coaches work with him and he develops some more as a player.
Yeah. All right. And then Landon Waller says Tennessee might be back. Texas A&M is overrated. Nick Saban said they weren't ready this week before the game, and he was right. And Arkansas might be the third best team in the SEC. And you don't agree with that?
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, obviously, I think Alabama, Georgia, sure, easy top two, whichever way you want to flip them.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very interested in a Arkansas, Kentucky.
Okay.
I don't know Arkansas, but Kentucky might be.
It's like going back and forth there, right? It's like, well, I can see that.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Which is wild. I agree. I think A&M's overrated. And of course, watch me say this and the same thing happens, but whatever. Yeah. I would say I wouldn't discount Kentucky as the third best team in the SEC. And that is wild to say.
Yeah. I mean, so I'd say a couple things there. I think we do need to pump the brakes on Tennessee's back. I mean, yep. Are they certainly positioning themselves for us to be able to say that? Yes, absolutely. But I don't know, way too early to call that one right now. But hey, it's like Heupel said, it's encouraging for their performance, and he said it multiple times in that interview. The growth of the program. So. Yeah, A&M's overrated. Saban was right. He said that they weren't ready. Yeah, gotta agree with that. So Janet Russell said she was shocked at how poorly Alabama played, still roll tide. KW Anthony said he was shocked at Bama not being able to dominate Texas.
You and me both, bud. You and me both.
And then Maeve Fleming, he said he was shocked at Kentucky's win, as many were. And then Mitch, he said that he was shocked at Kentucky or A&M. I mean,
A&M more than Kentucky. To me, like, as I said last week, Kentucky and Florida, it could have gone either way. You could have tossed a coin and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. But A&M,
yeah.
And maybe it's just because I'm a troll hater, but.
Yeah. So I mean, you could have really just taken your pick this weekend, right? There's a shocking storylines everywhere you look. So
it was wild across college football. NFL was wild. There was so much going on. Goodness gracious, I'm glad football's back.
Right? I mean, it's just chaos. And
it's bad for my health, but gosh darn it, I love it.
It's so exciting. I mean, and it's an all-day thing too. That's the one thing that I think we love about football too, collectively, is that sure, you have these one-off stories, but I mean, it's kind of like you set up on Saturday, you start watching, and it's like this drama from beginning of the day to the end.
It's Thursday night, depending on your conference. Yeah. Sometimes it's Friday, it's Saturday. We got Sunday, we got Monday. What a great time to be alive.
That's right. From now till, well, for a long time. So. All right, well, hey, that does it for the I'm gonna turn that down because that was really loud. Oh, I know why. It's because I have a different button. There we go. Yeah. So I'm telling you, it's something. But yeah, there we go. That's so much better. All right, so if you would like to contact us, please hit us up on email at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We're also on TikTok at Pigskins and Pageantry, Instagram at Pigskins and Pageantry, Facebook at Pigskins and Pageantry. All three of those are the same, in case you didn't catch that. Twitter at PPSEC Podcast. Don't forget, we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. We would love a 5-star review if you so desire. Hit that subscribe on the YouTube, and we would greatly appreciate that as well. Hey, this is just part one of this week, a mini episode. Looking forward to part 2 with Matt on Thursday, and we're going to talk about the upcoming games, make some predictions, and have some hilarious fun with Just for Fun. So, hey, until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
Y'all, it's a new week, and there's going to be adjustments made. So don't you worry. Mercury will get out of retrograde.
How long does that take? When does that?
I don't know. I don't actually know what it means.
Yeah,
I just say it because other people say it.
I know kind of what it means, but I don't know how long it lasts. So I'm going to look that up as soon as we get off the air.
Not long.
Here. Yeah. So, all right.